Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about a brutal heat wave, some big storms, and flash flooding. So if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. This is your overall hazard map for August the 12th. And what you're looking at here, man, all the orange shaded areas, that is your heat advisories. That is 105 plus range today for much of the Pacific Northwest, much of the midsection of the country and the Ohio Valley, as well as the Northeast. I mean, the heat is going to be very intense today. And all the pink shaded areas, that is your excessive heat warnings and watches happening right now. That is 110 plus range. That is some dangerous, brutal stuff coming up for today for a good chunk of the country, as there's a lot of real estate this is going to cover. I mean, this is, August the 12th. We're right in the peak of heat summer, and it's going to be no question. It's going to be dangerously hot today. So take all the precautions necessary and stay indoors as much as possible. So if we take a look at the big picture and why all this is playing out, let's take a look at the 500 millibar. I mean, man, we've got a dominating ridge of high pressure just parked over the Pacific Northwest. We have a trough in the middle of the country, and then we also have another dominating ridge for much of the Northeast. And underneath, we've got a lot of heat. So the only really somewhat cooler airs to play with is up here well to the north, but that is adding to our, storm threat. And we had a lot of big storms yesterday. We've had some big storms the last couple of days, and we actually get another round today as this system will finally start diving southeast as we go through time, and finally, hopefully, put an end to some of that severe weather. But we've got a rough day ahead coming up. So let's take a look at the overall temperatures today. Man, I think this is even too conservative still. We're talking widespread triple digits for much of the Pacific Northwest. A lot of heat records are going to be broken today. And over here in the Northeast as well. And these are these actual temperatures. Places like DC approaching near 100 degrees today. That is a very hot stuff. And the heat indexes, like I showed you, 105, 110. So that's what makes it oppressive and very dangerous out there, with the combination of the high temperature as well as the heat as it feels to the body. I mean, man, you got to take all the precautions necessary, because heat is dangerous and is still the #1 weather-related death out there. So definitely, heat is nothing to play with. Here is your drought map for this morning. I like to show this every Thursday because this comes out every Thursday. And here's where we stand for the United States. A lot of the exceptional, drought has kind of been subsided from a lot of the monsoon that's been happening over the last 6 to 7 weeks. But we got a good chunk of the West. It still needs a lot of help with a lot of rainfall. So they are getting it somewhat a little bit in our northern interior states, and there are some drought conditions creeping back in on Iowa and northern Illinois here, and even parts of West Virginia and parts of Virginia. But I think with what's to come with the system, and especially with the remnants of Fred, a lot of these drought conditions are going to be definitely putting a major hit, because we got a lot of rain coming over the next week. But yesterday was a very intense day. It was actually the third biggest day as far as storm reports go for the entire year, guys. That was a lot. I mean, look at it. 585 total reports so far. Most of them wind damage. So this was a lot of heavy wind damage. There's a lot of damage in and around these Ohio Valley, getting in parts of the Northeast, right along that boundary, like I showed you with that trough. And it's just been hitting with one day after another with successive pulses of cooler air and added instability. But finally, we get the main push today, and that will transcend a lot of the same areas that got hit yesterday. But back behind that, things are going to be starting to calm down a little. So that is definitely a good sign. But today, take a look at the water vapor imagery. Here's the setup. I showed you that cooler trough setting up in the midsection of the country. Right along here, there's that dry line filtering on the backside. But out ahead of it, we got a lot of moist, high dew point air to tap into. that's already having some strong thunderstorms this morning, and that's just going to add to as we heat up in the heat of the day. And again, you know, right around that 4 or 5 o'clock going into the early evening hours, we got another round of severe weather we're gonna have to be dealing with later on this afternoon. But look at the atmosphere that it's tapping into. That's why we have that excessive, just extreme instability in the atmosphere, because the dew points, I mean, with the trough coming in and the record heat back behind it, I mean, some of these dew points are mid 70s, upper 70s, near 80 dew point. That is crazy high. I mean, it doesn't get much higher than that. I mean, that's just almost maxed out right there. That is just the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, and that's why these heat advisories are in place, because because the dew points are so high. It doesn't take, you know, a 95-degree temperature to get, you know, a 110 heat index in that type of environment. So that's why it's just going to be oppressive today for a good chunk of the country. So it is not going to be a pretty day. It's one of those days it's going to be wanting to stay indoors for most of us. Here's your rain setup for later on this afternoon. These are all kind of daytime heating driven thunderstorms with taking advantage of the Gulf, just kind of right along the coast and around isolated sporadic showers for Florida. The main instability is going to be up top along the Ohio Valley, getting into the mid-Atlantic states. We're gonna have some strong to severe thunderstorms. And this is all compliments of Tropical Storm Kevin, and then what will be Linda coming up as well with the active monsoon. So we've got, again, adding to those monsoon rains for much of West Texas into New Mexico, as well as Arizona here later on this afternoon. But up to the north, we're going to have to be dealing with another round of severe weather. Not as definitely as widespread or severe as yesterday, but still a lot of these could be getting bumpy later on this afternoon in places like Kansas City, into Buffalo, into Rochester, into Overland Park, you know, Kansas City, Kansas. All these areas will be under the gun from, you know, essentially from, you know, basically northern Missouri all the way to the mid-Atlantic, all the way up the I-95 corridor. I mean, you saw the dew point. I mean, as this taps into that energy, man, you know, the storms are going to explode under that atmosphere, and that's kind of what we saw yesterday with a lot of those wind reports. And most of this is going to be, you know, downburst wind type effects. Yeah, you have some hail. Yes, there were some isolated tornadoes, but the main threat with this system, because the high heat content with this, is going to be your significant wind gust and your downburst winds with this particular system as it continues moving across to the east southeast as we go into the late afternoon hours. But here's your temperatures for Friday. Again, we got one more day, a record heat coming up for the Pacific Northwest. Again, more records are going to fall for a good chunk of this area of the country. Like I mentioned, we've got some cooler air back behind it. So once this, you know, filters into your area, the storm threat goes down, the rain threat goes down, and we got some much, you know, at least nicer. This is almost like normal type weather that you would normally see this time of year. But up ahead of it, man, we've got all those heat to still deal with for even Friday. So a lot of good, like I said, a lot of the real estate, a lot of areas are going to still be dealing with in the northeast some of those record high temperatures, if not near record high temperatures, especially with the combination of that heat advisory. It's not going to feel pretty at all. Here's your setup as we come up into the day on Friday. There's that boundary. There's that cooler air. So I showed you the temperatures. Back behind it, we've got no rain to deal with. We've got a lot of cooler, drier air filtering in. But ahead of it, we've got all that instability. Here's compliments of Kevin and what is now Hurricane Linda down here to the southern parts of Arizona and to New Mexico, bringing some flash flooding rains down there well to the south there. And then we got Fred. I mean, Fred's just kind of, you know, hanging on for dear life right now because it's getting ripped apart in the mountains. And they tried to find a center. They actually found a center, but there wasn't anything near it. So it's probably barely a tropical depression right now, but it's still traversing west northwest, and by the time we get into Friday, it'll be in and around near Cuba But it is expected to re-strengthen back into a tropical storm as we get into the day on Saturday. There's your setup for Saturday. It's going to be right along the southern tip of Florida, starting to approach some heavier rain for Florida area as we're watching these cooler air. It's not hot. I mean, it's good. It's like, the cooler air. So this is the week, right? I mean, this is the week where it's like basically the hottest time of the year. This is like peak week. In a lot of cities, you start to see your daily average temperature actually start to come down after this week. So, there are signs, hey, fall is not that far away, guys. I mean, so we need to hang tough, and we still have a couple more weeks of summer left, because I know by now a lot of you guys are like done with the heat, right? As well as I am. But it's August and we're here, and this is what we have to deal with for the time being. But fall is not that far away, and it'll be coming before you know it. But yeah, but before that, there's the look for Saturday. We do have that little instability of cooler air trying to sneak in, bringing some rain showers into Oklahoma. That'll start creeping into the northern interior states of North Texas, and then push kind of a backdoor front, as they call it. And then these will be diving down as time goes on into the early evening hours down here into the southern states. So as we go into Sunday, there's Fred hanging tough. Probably a tropical storm, if not almost a strong tropical storm by then. But the main setup for this is going to be your heavy flooding rains once it moves inland as well. So we got a lot of heavier rains impacting the Florida Panhandle. By the time we get into that Sunday time frame, that'll eventually start to creep into the portions of the southeast as we go to time. But as you see back behind it, once that front moves through, there's not much rain or anything to speak of back behind it. So as we go through that Monday time frame, this will continue lifting up as we have the combination of that front and Fred. That's going to set the stage for probably some flash flooding. We're probably going to have some flash flood watches in and around for portions of the southeast, come up into the day on Monday with some very heavy rain they're going to have to be dealing with. And this is Linda. I mean, this is Linda pulling that moisture well to the north now. So now we're talking places into Utah, getting back into Wyoming, into Wyoming here, and Montana as well, with some much needed rain. So as we slowly die down the ridge, that's going to help bring the instability down from the south. So we got to get that ridge out of the way. Once we get the ridge out of the way, then we got a clear path of rain moving further north. And so any rain we can get up here is desperately needed. So yes, as we go into that Tuesday time frame, there's the remnants of Fred. I mean, it just kind of parks itself and sits and spins with that boundary, and probably flash flooding rains into the Carolinas, getting into Virginia. So I know a lot of questions like, hey, when's Virginia going to get hit? I mean, you're probably going to get hit with the storms by the time we get into that Friday, Saturday time frame. But going into next week, we got a lot of heavy rain and flash flooding rains setting up for portions of the Carolinas and Virginia. So definitely be on the lookout for that as these monsoon rains start to creep even further north, as by then we have yet another boundary trying to sneak in from the north, getting into Montana, into the Dakotas, with some, again, these areas are in big time drought over here. So we need all the rain we can get. And actually, as we go into that Wednesday time frame, again, it still continues further to the northeast. We're still dealing with that heavy rain. So we're going to be adding to those totals in a big way over much of next week. And there's that boundary into the midsection of the country, from Nebraska to the South Dakota to Minnesota, with a good swath of heavier rain. And there's your total rain on the North American view. Well to the north, we've got that cooler air that I showed you in the 500 millibar, much cooler air filtering into Alaska and parts of Canada here, with some rain and kind of a chillier rain, so to speak, for them. And then with those boundaries for much of the week traversing across, here's the setup for the monsoon down south. A lot of the multi-inch rains will keep well into the southern interiors, but still some much needed rain, sporadic, maybe 1 to 2 inches. Hey, any little bit helps. Is definitely not much in the Pacific Northwest, unfortunately. But here's your bullseye with the combination of Fred and even Invest 95L too, adding to some of that instability. We've got multi-inch rains, if not 5 to 8 inch rains for portions of Florida, getting into the southeast coast, and these could be even some parts double-digit rains with no question totals over the next week. So we got a lot of heavy rain along that path of Fred, and then some of the moisture coming into play from 95L as well. We'll be talking about that, which is probably going to be Grace in the next couple of days. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.